Welcome to the Career Ready Podcast. Learn about resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, interviewing, and all the things you need to be career ready with the Career Services Center at College of DuPage. I'm one of your hosts, Rebecca Harrington. In today's episode, I'm going to lead the conversation on doing career research when you're changing career paths during your career.
And I'm your other co-host for this episode, Marisela Morales. I'm going to start our episode today with a listener question. The question submitted was, my friend used AI to write his resume. Is this a good idea? First, thank you so much for submitting your question. While using AI platforms such as ChatGPT and Gemini could be very tempting for writing a resume, it is very important to weigh the pros and cons. The primary advantages, of course, would be the ease and the speed of writing a resume, right? You are going to be saving significant time and effort. You are also going to be receiving a lot of assistance in spelling and grammar. However, you should also take into consideration some of the significant drawbacks that you will be facing. For example, with AI-generated content, it's going to sound very generic, and you may also receive some very unfamiliar vocabulary that would make it very difficult for you to answer a question during your interview. Now, that might seem unlikely, but I actually personally know of somebody who had difficulty answering an interview question because they didn't understand a term used by their AI-generated resume. Additionally, AI may alter information it doesn't comprehend, making it absolutely crucial for you to fact check your resume. Secondly, many AI platforms store data to improve their algorithms, even those with privacy settings. It is wise to assume that your information is going to remain accessible to others. So please avoid sharing any personal or sensitive details.
That is a really good point.
Lastly, AI tools do not often adhere to applicant tracking system, which is ATS.
The AI that HR departments use, basically.
Absolutely. So those of you who do not know what applicant tracking systems are, they are programs that companies use to screen applicants to ensure that they meet the minimum requirements. So once you upload your resume online, they are screened electronically using what are called applicant tracking systems, the short being ATS. Many of you may not have heard of ATS systems. However, it's estimated that 90 to 95% of Fortune 500 companies use them, and as many as 50% of small business companies use them. So knowing that AI does not adhere to these standards is really important to take into consideration. Not only that, but they also do not adhere to your typical industry standards. This is also very crucial because your resume, when read by the human eye by a hiring manager, is only given about maybe 5 to 7 seconds. So when it comes to formatting your resume, you need to make sure that it is both ATS and human eye friendly. So AI, unfortunately, at this point, does not meet those standards. How can you effectively use AI to help you write your resume? The fact is that you have to first create your draft. And you can do this by, there are many fantastic ATS-friendly templates out there. You can also use resume builders such as Lightcast Career Coach that can help you create your resume. So if your reluctance is coming from the struggle of just getting started, know that there are some really valuable tools to make your life easier. Use them. Once you have your draft, save it, but then save a second draft where you remove all personal information. And then gather a job description that you will be applying to. Then select the AI platform that you would like to use, and then use the following prompt. Compare my resume with the following job post. How do I fit this job description? How do I not fit this job description. Please tell me how I can improve my resume. After, paste your resume, again, without your personal information and the job post. Then review the feedback. Understanding how you align the job description helps you emphasize those points at the top of your resume. You are also going to be able to identify the areas where you do not fit, which will provide you the opportunity to reflect. How can you improve upon your skills? Or if you do already have those skills or that experience, then you will have the opportunity to go back into your resume and add it. Finally, review any additional tips that they have provided and any revised versions that you were provided in the AI platform. Compare it to the original and ask yourself, best practices. Does it meet best practices? Does it sound like you? Because if it does not, you need to fix it. Make sure that it sounds like you. Make sure that it sounds like a human being. It doesn't sound like a robot. Make sure that it uses the vocabulary that you would use. Make sure, most importantly, that it is accurate. Incorporating these changes will help you ensure that the final product is you and that it is improved. So it's a combination of both. It's the best of both worlds. You get the improvement and you get the benefit of it still being you.
That makes a lot of sense. I like the prompt. And I think that when you talked about someone not being able to answer an interview question because they didn't know the vocabulary that was used, that actually also reminds me of when people pay to have their resume written by someone else and they just use generic and big words and it has nothing to do with you personally. And I think that's a good way of thinking about it is that, as annoying as it is, we have to write our resume. We can use these tools to help us make it better. But in the end, you know you, and you need to be able to defend your resume and talk about it.
Absolutely. It has to come from you. But there is support out there, including us.
Absolutely.
Including us. Mm-hmm. Whether it's AI, whether it's Lightcast Career Coach, whether it is different departments out there to assist you. There is support. But at the end, the information does have to come from you because you are the one that knows yourself best.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Mari. And I think that'll be very helpful for our listeners.
And I do want to add that we are hoping to perhaps have an episode that is focusing on AI.
Yes, we'll have to dive. Absolutely. We know we're going to have to dive a lot more into this.
Absolutely, because we definitely recognize the presence of AI.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
No.
It's ever growing, ever changing, and it's about remaining marketable and understanding how we can keep up with this changing market.
Absolutely. Today's main topic is talking about changing your career. So you're already in your career and you've decided or you're thinking about, should I make a change? In a recent article from HR Dive that we'll link to in the show notes, they say that about 58% of workers responding to a recent survey said they are looking to make a career change right now. The respondents who said they were interested in making that career change said some of the reasons that they were considering it were looking for remote work. We definitely see that, right, Mari?
Absolutely.
Higher pay, better work-life balance, and more meaning or fulfillment in their work. Maricela, I think you and I are good people to talk about this topic because we have both made career changes throughout our time in the workforce. And I, definitely several of those reasons resonate with me. Higher salary, wanting a better work-life balance, and actually finding meaning or fulfillment in my life. Were all ones that I, different times, have looked for. How about for you?
I completely agree. Work-life balance as well as pay and fulfillment. I definitely completely agree with that. All of these are incredibly important aspects of a career.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, we have this, we see this with young students where they think whatever they pick, that's it forever. Mm-hmm. But as we go through our career, I think we realize that that's not always the case. And so if you're wondering if a career path change might be something for you, some things to consider. I like this. I found this article. I thought this was interesting, right? So things to consider. Do you experience dread on Sunday nights?
Oh my.
Ooh, if the thought of Monday makes you anxious or depressed, then that might be a good reason to consider a change in career. Maybe it's a loss of passion for what you do, a lack of interest in it. Another reason that people make a change might be a desire for growth. Maybe you feel stuck. You feel like you can't move forward in the career that you're in and you want to learn and do something new. It gets boring sometimes, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And lastly, there could be more, but, a big one is that people make career changes due to life changes. So a major life event, like you're starting a family or you move, or really just even a shift in your own priorities can be a reason that you want to start looking. Once you've decided that you want to explore a new career, then we want to think about what the next steps are to figure out what that new career should be. Sometimes you might have something that you've always wanted to try, but you might not have any idea what you want to do or something in between. So let's talk about, how we can figure it out. We've talked a lot about career research this season already, and I think a lot of the tips we've talked about apply to this changing careers, but there are some unique things to think about. The first thing to do is to do a self-assessment. Do a deep dive into yourself. Take some time to really think about who you are and what you want. I recommend writing or typing your thoughts down. And I remember when I was doing this, there's books out there that you can take out of the library and they can kind of help guide you in thinking about things. And there's also assessments, right, that you can do. So some things to think about. One is your skills. What are the things that you're good at doing? What are things that you feel you aren't very good at doing or you just don't like doing? Right? I think sometimes, just because we're good at something doesn't mean that we have to do it for a living. Maricela, I was remembering I took this natural skills test where it was like, what are you naturally good at? And one of the things that I was really naturally good at was alphabetizing things.
Oh.
Like filing things in alphabetical order.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I don't want to do that for a living. I'm glad that that's an ability that I supposedly have, but doesn't need to be the focus.
And, it's funny because, I actually had something very similar. I was working with an individual who he is an artist. And he told me, I don't want to do art for a living because I want to do art as a passion.
You don't want to feel forced.
Yes.
To do
I
it.
don't want to do what somebody else wants me to do because that is going to take away from the pleasure that I get from art.
Makes sense.
Which is my pleasure, which is my passion.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was something incredibly profound.
Yeah. Very insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So taking that time to kind of really look in and see, and the thing is, especially when you've been working already in a career, you now have data that you can kind of use to help you figure out what is it that I like doing? What is it that I don't like doing? What do I think I might like to do? And it really gives you a better perspective than when you're, 20 and trying to figure all of that out. And, you might realize that you want to learn new skills. Maybe, think about with that, what are you willing to learn? How much time are you willing and money to spend on learning a new skill? I think, would you go back to school, for example? And these are all good questions to start thinking about. Think about your interest. What are parts of your current career that you enjoy, if anything? What are things that you'd like to try? Are there things in your personal life that you think would be good to bring into your professional life? Like some people might think, oh, I have this art that I do on my side, but I'd like to make it more a part of what I do. Lastly, think about your values. And values is kind of a broad term when we talk about it with careers. So it can be a lot of different things. It could be, how much time in like that work-life balance, right? Do you want a 9 to 5? Do you need to work on the weekends or at night? Maybe you need to make more money in order to travel or do the things you want to do. Maybe you want a job where you do travel. I remember in my 20s, I had a job where I traveled a lot. and I loved it. And then as I got older, I went, I hate it now, because you just start to realize it was too much, And so again, just trying to figure out, what are the things that you value the most, and how can your new career support those values? Right. And it could be too, we get a lot of this, right? People that come see us that really want to give back. They want to help people. They want to give back to their community in a more direct way than maybe they do right now. I wanted to just, take a second to talk about my own example for this, which was, I worked in human resources, which I enjoyed doing, in that, I was helping people, right? I mean, that's part of HR, is that you're, trying to, help the employees to, get what they need. But it wasn't enough for me. I wanted a more direct impact where I could see the things that I was doing and kind of how they were helping people. Plus, I worked in kind of like an IT area of HR. So I didn't even really work directly with employees all that much. And that was why I decided to go back to school to be a teacher. I wanted my whole job to be giving back, not just something that I did on the weekends. And, it took me a while to get to where I am now, and, a lot of changes from there. But that was a big shift just at that moment of the break of like, I want to move from this corporate environment to an educational environment where I feel more like I'm making a direct impact. Was there anything like that happened for you where you kind of made a big shift in your mind?
I would definitely say so. I always knew that I wanted to help people. I didn't exactly know in what context, but I initially thought I was going to work for a nonprofit. I initially got into education and then moved into social services because I wanted to help. That's all that I wanted to do. I wanted to help. But then it was just one of those things where I realized I was trying to help people that either didn't want my help or were not ready for my help. And I was at a crossroads. I realized I needed to make a change and was incredibly lucky. I was told about a position by a friend of mine who said, there's a position, these people, and she didn't even know anything about the actual position. The only reason that she even mentioned it was because she liked the people that worked at the department. She said they're very nice. They're just very nice people to work with. I really don't even know them. I kind of know them in passing, but they just seem like a really nice team. And so you might like them. And I didn't really think much of it, but I read the job description and I thought, well, it's an education and it sounds interesting. And it turned out to be an adult education. And that changed the direction of my life.
Sure.
And I fell in love with it. It was incredibly fortuitous. It was life-changing. I fell in love with that population. And then I relocated to Illinois, and the position that I got here in Illinois happened to be a combination of adult education and touched on a little bit of career readiness and college